Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. With each new school year, there's enthusiasm, hope, and anticipation of the year ahead. I'm a grandfather, and I had the pleasure this morning of taking my grandson to school this morning, along with Jeff Bourne, who took his daughter to school. And my grandson is beginning his kindergarten year at Linwood Holton Elementary School. And like all parents and grandparents, we have great hopes for the aspirations of our children and for their future. All of us want better schools, better teachers, more resources. All of us want safe environments, and ultimately, all of us want a better city. And the best city that we can have is a city that will yield the best future, not only for ourselves, but for all of those young people that began a new school year today. My administration has been working with an intentional focus on economic development precisely for that reason. We want to expand the city's tax base in order to generate much needed revenue. And this revenue will simply supply the resources we need to tackle issues like providing more resources for schools and creating jobs and mitigating poverty and reducing the tax rate on our city residents. And so today, I'm announcing that I'll be calling for the first reduction in the city's real estate tax rate since 2007. Given new projections on revenues that will be generated from real estate assessment growth, along with growth expected from the extraordinary amount of new construction in our city, I'm calling for the real estate tax rate to be reduced from $1.19 down from $1.20. This reduction in the residential real estate tax rate will require City Council approval, and I filed an ordinance to be introduced on September 8th of 2014. If approved, this means that tax properties and tax property owners will receive in January 2015 a new rate that will become effective. What we want to do is we want to enthusiastically embrace this sign of growth in our city, providing tax relief for city owners, and that's an important priority for us. It's a tool to help attract and retain families in our city. And even though this is a very modest adjustment, it's an adjustment that we welcome because anything we can do to reduce the tax burden on our citizens while continuing to provide crucial city services is simply the right thing to do. I'm continuing to work for even greater growth and development in our city, which will lead to the further strengthening of our economic and additional benefits for our residents going forward. And so on this first day of school, I want to return my attention back to matters pertaining to our school district for a moment. We all know that a strong and healthy school district, as well as an important tool in attracting and retaining families in the city. And I know some may be questioning my call for a reduction in the real estate tax rate at a time when our schools are calling for more resources, may call that into question. And so let me just address this matter head on. First, I have not been advised of any health or safety issues or any issues affecting our school district in the short term. If any of our schools were facing health and safety concerns, I'm sure that the Richmond Public School System would not have opened these facilities today. If that is not the case, then I would be the first to say that those schools should not have been open. But what I do want to say today is that we must draw the distinction between important and urgent. This is a distinction that has to be made. Secondly, we all agree that the needs of our school district are of immense importance, not only to the children attending those schools, but also to the administrators, the teachers, and staff, and important to the overall health and vitality of the city. And so this afternoon, I am convening the school's finance working group that I announced the formation of 2 weeks ago. This working group will manage and engage in an aggressive review schedule of our financing options for maintenance and construction of public school facilities. I've worked to bring together a group that has a unique skill set that will assist us Several corporations and nonprofits have offered the assistance of financial professionals from their organizations, and we look forward to being benefited by their expertise. And as I mentioned, that working group, I also want to express my appreciation to Meade Westvaco, to Philip Morris USA, Altria Client Services, Dominion Resources, Church Schools, Episcopal Diocese of Virginia. I want to thank all of them for their donation of these services to help us review this matter. I also want to state unequivocally that, as I stated 2 weeks ago, that the possible use of capital leases is something we're looking at very closely. We're exploring with respect to building new schools, and particularly the new school in Highland Grove. And if this option proves viable, then the money currently budgeted for Overby Shepherd construction can be reprogrammed for other school capital needs. Now, as I have stated, I'm open to that option if true diligence is accomplished on the part of the school board. Expecting careful consideration and action is called for. We are at a stage where at least 3 studies, already costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, has been commissioned by the school board, but there's been little action. A 2004 school efficiency review conducted by the Commonwealth of Virginia noted that maintaining so many old, energy inefficient buildings is not cost effective. That report also noted that one of the key factors preventing the division from moving forward with facility changes is resistance at the neighborhood level to changes related to school issues. The Commonwealth's findings concluded that we really have only 2 distinct choices. Number 1, to accept that the division spends a very large amount of money maintaining and operating very old facilities that are below capacity already and trending downward, and accept that our tax dollars will fund this system at a higher level than otherwise would be necessary. Or we can accept the fact that changes need to be made in order for us to save money. The bottom line is that we've got to be smart in the way we work. We've got to be smart in the way we move forward in a way that is best for the overall health and strength of the city. And I'm going to continue to call for that level of commitment. I'm going to continue to call for that level of energy and authenticity from elected school board members. Our students and residents deserve no less. And finally, the reality is that only 11% of our population is being served by RPS. And even if our entire school-age population was being served by the school system, that would equate to about 14% of our population. And so, when we make financial decisions about how to raise money and where to invest scarce dollars, we have to consider our whole population, and we have to consider the needs of our entire city. Those needs are many, and as mayor, I recognize that there are pulls from many directions. People need help with their utility bills. People need help finding jobs. People want their streets paved, and people want sidewalks. People need social services, public safety, housing, and transportation. And when we invest our dollars, we've got to make sure that we are investing them wisely. And from my vantage point, I don't just want to think about one thing, but I just think that it is something that we must ask ourselves, and I don't think that it's asking too much. And this is no diversion or jab at the school district. It's simply the truth. So thank you so much for your attention. And if there are any questions at this point, I'll be more than happy to entertain them.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Is opposed to cutting the tax rate? I mean, the police and fire could use a pay raise. You know, there's a lot of other uses. You know, I guess you have to weigh the tax cut versus that. Did you consider that when you came up with the idea to cut the tax rate?
Yeah, we're always considering ways to fund the necessities of the city, but we also need to recognize that when we have an opportunity to give back to the citizens, that's something that we should do. And we have an opportunity in the city of Richmond to reduce taxes when in other localities taxes are going up. We want to attract new residents to the city. And I think that by making this very small step, it's an indication that we're moving in the right direction.
The other question I have is, you know, you talk about scarce resources, but just for instance, the $250,000 for that sign at Carytown could be used to repair up, you know, some basic need that a school has. And what is your, I mean, you basically would have the power to, you know, nip that in the bud. Would you consider that, considering that there are so many other needs?
I think that you might want to ask the council members from that district as to what their intentions are as it relates to that. It seems to me that those are probably funds that were dedicated to that area, but I'm not really sure of that. But I think that's a question for the councilmen in those areas to answer. Well, good. He's here, so I mean, you can get with him.
You mentioned attracting people to the city. Don't schools play a large role in that? Making sure that the funding is there to provide for decent schools. And be clear,
we want to work hand in glove with the school system to address the needs that we have. I was in Linwood Holton School this morning, along with Jeff Bourne from the school board, and I was so pleased at what I saw, and so hopeful at what I will see. And so this is not stepping away.
Right, but Holton is one of the newer schools. I mean, there's schools that are in not as good shape as Holton.
I'm not stepping away from the need to address the issues that have been raised by the school system.
When do you think that the new group that you formed will actually, or when is your goal for actually finding funds and putting them towards that $35 million that the school district, if that's your intention, that the school district said they needed like ASAP?
Well, in my message, I talked about the difference between important and urgent. And so we are looking forward to getting the final report from the school board, I believe, in November, I believe it is. And so when that report comes to us, we'll be able to make the assessment as to what is urgent and what is important. But my message to the group that I'm assembling today is that the raising of the money and looking for alternate fund sources is urgent. So I don't have a date certain, but it's very important that we move swiftly to address these issues.
Who's in that group?
I don't have names, but we have top financial officials from the corporations that I named.
Are there members of anybody from the school community or city council?
No, we assembled people with expertise in finance, people who are able to find different ways. You know, you can just ask for money and write a check, but other communities across the nation have found ways to creatively deal with school funding issues as it relates to maintenance and capital improvement. And we want to make sure that we're on the cutting edge of making that happen here in Richmond.
Will that be an open-ended group, or you have a kind of time frame on how long it will exist?
As I mentioned to the young lady here, it's very important, and we want them to move as swiftly as they possibly can. The school board has indicated that they have some very important needs. We're going to determine which ones are urgent, which ones are important, and we want to work hand in glove with them to get that done.
Mr. Mayor, is the proposal for a lower tax rate something that's strictly voluntary, or is it partly a response to the high growth in assessments and the requirement that the taxes are rolled back to match the revenues?
Is it voluntary?
Purely voluntary, or is it a response to the requirement that when assessments go up by more than a certain percentage, the tax rate has to fall to balance out?
Well, I think that we're trying to seek a balance in making sure that when we have the opportunity to return something back to the citizens, we do that. And so when we were made aware of the fact that we were going to have additional money because of the assessments, our response was to find a way to return some of that to the people.
And is it your position that $1.19 is the right rate, or would you go perhaps lower than that?
Well, I look forward to having discussions with City Council. I think that that's something that we can have constructive dialogue about. And so if it goes lower, I think that 119 is right. But I'm open to discussing lower. I don't think we should stay at 120. I think that since 2007, we have not lowered the rate, and I think that it sends a good message to the citizens of Richmond that we're not just looking to spend money, but we're also looking to save money. Thanks a lot.